for music, the critics. I had writers that did technical stuff for, I had a business. St. Pete Times was my customer. So St. Pete Times had different people that did different writing for different topics. And so I built a relationship with all of them. And there was one time I had Sir David Wilcox, the Queen's musician, coming from England. And we were doing this big deal concert. And I sent in my announcement to the calendar listing, just modestly sending it in. And that person sent it back to me and says, we can't publicize it. It's a church event. It's not of general interest. So I went to the music critic, and they jumped on it, did a personal interview. And I had a front page picture of the rehearsal of Sir David and my choir and an article, which was much better than a calendar listing. And this guy, being a music critic, knew this was a nationally renowned conductor that we were bringing to St. Pete, Florida, and they jumped on it. So it was to their advantage to run the story, which they did. And it didn't fit one person's model, but it fit another person's model. So I could have gone back to her and gone, nah, 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 but I didn't, because it didn't fit her model, but it did fit the other model. So just because somebody says no doesn't mean, like you said, you've got different people that have different slants. So we can go to a different place, and it might be of interest to them. Do you have a story around, it's not doing an end run, but it's really finding the fit, I guess would be the proper thing to say.
Yeah, and so, you know, a lot of people say, well, what do you say? You've got the press release, you've got all the press kit together, what do you do? And that's where in the media list, I do identify multiple people. And you know how we have a bullseye and we aim for a dart? Well, I imagine having a handful or a fistful of bullseyes, and I send them out to multiple people. And I say, I'm not sure where this goes, maybe you can direct me. And most of the time when it gets to where it's going, they have heard about it from different locations, so it tends to have a little more impact or attention.
The other thing I think is important is to know that you're sending it to the real person. You've checked to make sure that it's the right person and you've spelled their name correctly.
Yes. Yeah, I'm old school on picking up the phone as much as possible and getting their permission and letting them know that to expect it. Also to follow up and expect multiple no's. No, I didn't get it. No, I didn't read it. No, it's the wrong department. No, we don't want to print it. You know, my biggest success was where I got rejected like 13 times, and they ended up calling me when they were going to print, and they said that they had remnant space, one page. Once they got to layout, they realized that they had one page, ended up doing a full profile picture and an entire article.
Love it. That is amazing. That is amazing. So Robert Green's on here, Nancy's on here, Sandy, hi, Renee, hi, Arthur, hi. You mentioned, you just kind of slid by something here. I'm going to come back to the press kit. What is that?
So that's a great question. That's the 6 things that we talked about as far as in the title. I think that there's 6 things that are essential to be ready for the media. And some, you know, the first thing is your press release, having what it is that you're doing. And I've got a simple system that's 1 page, double space, title at the top. It's very much a story focused as opposed to advertising. You even quote yourself as an expert. And when you quote yourself as an expert, I encourage people, like, I wouldn't say Shannon, the author of Media Magic. I would just say Shannon, author and marketing strategist, or something very general, because when they look at it, and if they see that it looks like you want free press, then there's a higher chance of it ending up in the trash. So we keep it very simple. So the press release is one thing that you want to have ready to go, because when you call them or you connect with them, they're going to say, send it over. The other thing is I like people to have ready their expert power bio. Expert power bio, and I say power because this is a story about you. If you're a nonprofit, this can be a story about your board or individuals that are involved in it. But having this ready tends to get people to pay attention and notice who you are, and you're not having to sell yourself. The third thing, company pieces. You know, do you have brochures, business cards, having those items ready to send out a notice? Is there an event flyer that you're working with? Sample PR. So sample PR that you've been a part of. If you've been on radio, TV, articles, sample things that you've contributed. is great. And then also the next one is things that have been written about you, that third party writing. So those are other items. And the last two is your order form. Now, I don't always send this in with a press release, I'm not saying, but having that ready, because a lot of times individuals want to know, what do you offer? Tell me a little bit more about who you are and what you offer. And so having that ready so they can get an overview is key. And the last thing is action photos. Action photos are you in action. I know that we want to update our headshots and we want to have those, but do not send those in with a press release. You're really wasting your time unless they ask specifically for a headshot. And you always want to do what they say to do as opposed to what I say to do. You know, I'm teaching you a format that's worked, but you want to follow what they say, number one. But action photos, Hugh, can I share a little story about action photos and why that's important?
I love it. You know, I had a photo career previously, and I see a lot of really stupid pictures. And, you know, people standing around smiling is not printable. It's not very interesting.
So action photos, what happened with me was when I was first learning this formula, they said, please, do you have any photos? Oh, yes, I sent a headshot. And all I got was a real small, article, and that was it. And so I started looking at, like, what are they really looking for? And the next time when they asked if I had an action photo, I was like, yes, let me put this together. And it was literally me and a woman standing in front of a booth or a display, and I'm looking at a brochure pointing at it with her. So this was our action photo. And they gave us a quarter page for the photo and then a quarter page for the article, and it was huge. They really love things that make them stand out. So I send in a few things when we submit the press release so they can choose and connect with an image.
That's awesome. That's a really good list. And I want to make sure we get a numbered list and put it on the people listening to this on the podcast. It's the Nonprofit Exchange. We'll put notes there and put a link to your site and a link to your email so you can email the receipt. They can email a receipt and get the free stuff you promised. So if I heard you right, nonprofits stand a good chance of getting free publicity because of the kinds of work that we do. Did I hear that correctly?
Absolutely. Everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, but nonprofits have an advantage because many times they hit all three of those things: the human interest, the community, and then the education. And if you can even tie in all three, that's even more powerful, but it only takes one.
And you talked about the bio, and I guess there's a whole methodology around that, and you speak to that in your book, but why are the leader and team bios, why are they important for getting free publicity, and does that lead to more attendance, more donations? What's the net result? Why do we want to have those bios included?
Yeah, so with the bio, and Hugh, I think I did get your permission. I'm going to actually give them my 12-step system for free. So if they go to shannongronich.com /power bio, that's shannongronich.com /power bio, they can get the 12-step system that I take it through. But I need to update it. There's actually a 13th step, which is listing your contacts or clients, even if it's a past company that you've worked with. I found that by adding number 13, there's been gems as I've talked to people where, Delta might have been a client for them, or they just sometimes forget key names that they're able to share. So please go get that power bio. Why it's important is that one of the most challenging things for individuals to do is to talk about themselves or do, what some people might consider bragging. And it is the most powerful thing to stand out in the crowd and get people to pay attention and notice you. And I found that in the bio process, it really speeds up that, if you're working with a donor and they want to know who are you and what you're doing and why they should entrust you with their money, and they can see that, you know, this is who you've worked with, this is what you've accomplished, this is what you stand for, it makes it easier for them to write a check, and you're actually not having to talk as much, you know. And with the media, a lot of times they want to know, who is this? Why do I need to pay attention to this, you know, to this individual? So with your board, especially with donations and grants, and I know that's a totally separate topic, but it's important. You know, it's like they want to know, even with media, who is on the board and who is running this organization, and to be able to share and showcase that you've got some support of, you know, whether it be big names or support of their skill set, that this is not just, you know, a whim, if that makes sense, or if it is just getting started, that you've really positioned it with some leaders.
Well, you want to position yourself as a professional, and what you're giving us are really professional tools. And I know sometimes people are bashful about bragging about what they've done, but it's just a factual representation of what you stand for. And that way the person on the other end can choose what they want to extract if they want to print some of that. So those are really, really good points. I want to go back to the website is Shannon Gronich, ShannonGronich.com, and then /PowerBio is what it is, /PowerBio.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, that's
okay.
Correct.
Sometimes we have a hiccup in the internet connection, so it might be my end, might be your end, but it might be okay. Recording. Huh?
I do know sign language.
I don't work on the podcast. So, Russell, what do you think of all this? You spent a lot of time working in the nonprofit sector, and there's so many people that keep things they do a secret.
Well, yeah, a lot of them don't want to talk about themselves, or they feel like it's bragging, or they're a little bit apologetic about it. And so it's important to talk about what you're doing. People want to know what it is that you're doing. They're interested. If they're looking at your mission, they want to know what you're doing. And a lot of times in some nonprofits, you get social workers, and they're uncomfortable talking about value or bragging out. That it sounds salesy, it sounds marketing, but you are marketing. You are marketing, and you are presenting an image, and you're telling people about what you're doing. And you know, Bob Proctor talks about it. What's so great about that? You have to talk about what's great and what people are actually getting out of it, in the terms that mean something to them, because it's not about you. So,
Bob Circosta.
Bob, yes.
Bob Circosta, the whiz cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had the Bob part right.
Yeah.
I know, we know both of them. So Russell, you pinged a couple of ideas here, and Russell Dennis and Hugh Ballou are interviewing Shannon Gronich. We're broadcasting live on Facebook, and we're recording the Nonprofit Exchange podcast, and you can find that on iTunes if you don't already have it. And we'd love for you to go and rate this podcast on the iTunes store. So Shannon, we've framed this so far, at least from my limited perspective, we framed this in promoting upcoming events. What about continuing to share the important things we're doing, the big successes, as a follow-up to an event or as an ongoing communication with the media? Is that any different than promoting an event or something coming up?
Yeah, well, and even an event, we want to be, there's ways that you want to craft it, but yes, you want to, you know, what education piece can you contribute? What education piece is your nonprofit contributing? They're always looking for that type of information. Also, if there's something in the media that's happening now that you can piggyback on, that can really get you some traction and mileage. You know, is there I'm just going to use the example. We had one woman tie in the president, you know, Donald Trump, in her article and in her media, and they picked it up and went wild with it. You know, if you're in real estate and the real estate market, something's happening with that trend, see what's in the media and what people are talking about. And if there is a way to craft a story around what you're, you know, what's happening there, that is a great way to get some steam.
Is that called newsjacking?
Yes. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can get some extra buzz, can't you, if you piggyback on whatever's going on. It could backfire though, couldn't it?
Yeah, I'm always real mindful of, you know, religion and politics, but don't let that stop you. You know, you just want to be careful. And one thing that you're right, Hugh, because what I've noticed about marketing is that 100% of the time they're inaccurate about something. And so I just had to always be thankful for what I got. I mean, I've had them spell my last name wrong. I've had that, you know, I mean, there's 100% of the time something has been incorrect. And I just, you know, am grateful for it. I have had bad press. I've also worked with people that have had bad press, and I know that there's different levels of that. But there's also different ways of twisting that. I mean, one of my bad press stories, they took a picture of our event road sign, which had our website and our phone number and our company name, and it said, "Road signs are loitering our town."
Oh man.
So it was negative news, but it was, you know, and it was a half-page photo, so it was really great. I had another friend who came to me, and it was really heart and horrible for her what had happened. She was in a lawsuit, different things were coming up, and she was really nervous about her event and thought, should I not do the event? Is this negative news going to be really bad? And they kept writing about her in the paper, and I have to tell you, they even mentioned her event, and her event sold out like a month in advance. So but it, you know, she was a woman making a difference in the world. She was doing, you know, her event was around empowering women and leaving an impact in human trafficking. So in spite of her personal drama that was going on, she was a woman with purpose and passion, and just had to keep focused on her vision and mission, you know, through doing this. And it did turn out to be just incredible for her.
So getting attention and getting to what the essential message is the essential message. And if I'm hearing you also, we want to set ourselves apart and define what's so important about what we're doing. That's what Russ was talking about, the WizCat. I've seen a lot, and I've written a lot of bad press releases. So give us some of the worst practices and how you would change that. You've seen some bad ones, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, people spend thousands of dollars on publicists, and then they come to me and say, nothing got picked up, and I look at their press release, and it's an ad, and all it is selling. So that's the number one mistake, is taking a press release and selling yourself. Now, if you're paying for advertising or you're paying for an article, that's something that would make sense. But a lot of times they don't pick it up. If, you know, don't put your logo on the top. Like that, again, is free advertising. And I know people have that style, but I found that if you just put your, you know, the tagline at the very top, keep it, you know, add a number if you can. The one that I said for my event, the tagline was 85 ways to improve your health in 6 hours or less. We had 85 booths. It was a 6-hour event, and it was around health. So that was a very creative way. And it, you know, people are like, what is this? It got picked up. So do as much as you can to really not market yourself. Also, keep it on one page. Keep it simple, double spaced. Less is more. This concept of more is more, I think, is kind of going out the window as a whole in life. I found that less is more, because that gets them saying, wanting to connect and ask questions. And I know this is off of the press release, but you also have to remember that when you're talking with them, because when they're interviewing them or you're picking up the phone and they say, tell me about the story, don't talk to them for 10 minutes. Like, just give them the snippet. Hey, I want to share 85 ways to improve your health in 6 hours or less. This is a great event. And I think you guys are going to want to know about it. We need our community to know. So less is more in each aspect of this, to where they're kind of pulling it out of you.
And the less needs to be valuable, so to think about what the essential message is. And back to what Russ said a minute ago, why should they care? We really need to hit with the why piece of this. And so these elements are really good. And I know, and this goes for social media posting as well. I see people that are just hammering really hard and selling and getting some coverage, whether you want people to retweet it or share the post, or you want the media to pick it up in their publication. You just can't be arrogant about what you're doing, and you can't just press it out there like you're selling them a used car. So I find that very, very helpful.
And the other key piece with the publicity is, do you care if I just go through and tell them what the key components are in the?
Please do. We're about halfway through the interview, so go for it.
So this is one of the ways that I found that's simple to get millions of dollars in free press. The tagline that sizzles is at the top, usually in 12 to 14 font, 5 to 7 words. Sometimes it can be a little more, and really making that sizzle. A way that I've learned to make things sizzle is a practice. It's an ongoing practice, not worrying about what's the article going to say, but how do I write a tagline? And so the next time you go into the grocery store, look at Oprah, look at Cosmo, look at these magazines. They've spent billions of dollars in learning how to craft press releases. Take a picture and look at them and say, how can I use this in my business? A lot of times it's 3 strategies, 9 tools, how to. Those educational pieces are very easy, but use that to start training your brain to look at what works. Another thing is, if you go to HubSpot, if you Google HubSpot blog generator, HubSpot blog generator, you can actually put in 3 nouns and it'll help you come up with catchy titles. Now, it's not perfect. You can play with it, but you can get that idea of what's going to get them to pay attention. So that's the absolute number one most important thing. Then you go into the introduction, which is the second most important thing. And that's where most of the time I invite people to talk about the challenge or the problem. And it's best if it has stats, numbers, and references of where you find that information. That is really powerful. That's the number one thing I would select. If you cannot, for some reason, identify a problem, then you can quote somebody famous. Paul Pilsner, an economist I've used. Einstein, I've seen individuals use. You want it to be relevant. And number one, I would say try to lean towards the stats and talking about the challenge. That's usually 2 to 3 sentences at the most, real short and sweet. Again, is to get them to go, okay, let me pay attention a little more. Then the second paragraph, there's only 3 paragraphs in this process. So intro, the second one is the body. And at the body, you always start with quoting yourself as an expert. And when you quote yourself, it's a formula. You do beginning quote, states, Hugh Ballou, leadership expert, and transformational leadership expert. Now with Hugh, I would put Forbes recognized, because guess what? Forbes is a big name. So that's a little different than Media Magic. You want to put that big name, but other than that, keep it really general, and then end quote. So you're quoting yourself as an expert. That's kind of talking about, your statement on that. It's not like a quote like you would do in social media. It's more of a statement about what the problem is that you're a solution for, or why it's important to address that. And then you give a few more sentences, and this is where it varies, because it could be 5 sentences, it could be 7, because we want to keep it on 1 page, double space. And that's where you start talking about the solution. And kind of driving them towards, if it's a solution for stress, You might give them one solution, and then in the third paragraph, the call to action could be, go to my website to get this information, or go to here to get this information. Do not sell in the press release. It could be, number 3 could be a call to action to the readers, this, or the publisher. This press release is something that can help our community, or this information can help our community. Or it can be a call to action to the readers, take this information to make your life better, or make your nonprofit go to the next level. And then you do at the very bottom your contact information, phone number, website.
Well, as tax-exempt organizations, and I think Russ can weigh in on this with his experience with IRS, we have to be very careful with a call to action, because we're not selling, and we can be classified as unrelated business income if we're selling a program or something and we have a call to action. When you advertise or do an interview on public radio or public TV, they're very restrictive. You can say, for more information, go to, and it's typically to the homepage of our organization. So we, as charities, we have to craft those statements, the call to action statement, very carefully. Russ, do you have any more wisdom on that point?
I just want to say it's actually best to do that whether you're a nonprofit or not. The more you can stay away from selling any type of thing, the better it is. So thank you for bringing that up as far as the rules with nonprofit.
So Russ, do you have some wisdom on that? Thank you, Shannon.
Well, as far as call to actions for nonprofits, is building a good story and telling people where they can get more information. You just want to give them more information. If you can hit them with facts about the problem you solve and why those facts are important, that's so much the better. It's like we need to move forward on this. We need to take action to solve this problem. Find out how you can get involved, and you sort of leave it at that. But with a nonprofit, you really got to hammer the problem and why it's important to the people you're trying to reach.
Yeah, Russ has noted the steps that you just went through for the press release in the chat box, so people that are watching can see that on the webinar, can see in the chat box. Those that aren't can come to nonprofitchat.org. I encourage people to come there and register to get the notes. When you register, it'll send you to the archive section so you can get all the history of the nonprofit exchange. We used to do a separate chat and exchange, and the chat was a hashtag nonprofit chat on Twitter, which still goes on, and it goes on simultaneously with this live interview. But we found that we wanted to incorporate more energy into one event. So the interviewing experts like this and providing worthy information brings a whole lot of value. We're targeting nonprofits, but this works for businesses too, Shannon. I don't think there's anything I've heard that wouldn't work for a business publicity, right?
That's correct.
So thinking about some of the things you've talked about before, the elements of the press kit, is there somewhere on your site that people can get that checklist for the press kit?
It might be in one of my blogs, but I'm not certain. But I'm happy to read it real quick. And then I see that somebody.
Russ, I want to see if Russ can grab those 5. Can you, Russ, real quick? I think you may have before. But go ahead, Shannon. Give us those 5, because I think it's worth repeating. And some people call it a media kit, the press kit. Yeah. I think, and if I understood, you're doing a physical kit that you can mail or deliver to somebody that's hard copy, right?
So I actually do something. I have it on my website, so I have a media, access to different radio shows, things I've done in the past. When we talk about showcasing what you've done in the past, either things that you've participated in or written about you, having those there are great. I do like to have something. There are environments that we go into, like CEO space, where it is nice to have something that's in a folder, or can include a disc of you being available. But most of it I put on website, or I send in an email for that initial contact. So
Got it. Got it. So the essential things in the press kit are?
The expert power bio,
Uh-huh.
the press release,
Mm-hmm.
company pieces,
Company pieces like your
brochure,
ah,
cards, flyers about the event, anything
got it.
regarding your company.
All right.
Action photos.
Action photos, people doing stuff.
Yep. Sample media that you've done, anything that you've participated in, and then articles or clippings about you.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Was that too fast for us?
And as a nonprofit, if you have a fancy annual report, or there's things that you have, I would consider the annual report, some of them seen as a company piece that a nonprofit has that you can include in that, or I would suggest including in that.
It would occur if you send an email, you could put a link to that on the website if it's a lengthy report. Sometimes they are. So the reporter could go and search that out. So part of what you ran by before, I'd like you to say more about the title, because I find that the title can make a huge amount of difference. So you mentioned a way to come up with snazzy titles. I usually use the Google keywords tool, and I put in what I think is a good title, and it gives me other keywords around that. It helps me think about some other words that maybe I didn't think about. But you mentioned using a HubSpot, and they've got a blog title generator tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. And just as you're out looking around, seeing what's there. But I think, what I found are numbers are the most powerful. That gets people to know, okay, there's a system here. This is synchronized. This is simple. There's an ending, I guess, is what I want to say. So for some reason, numbers, if you can tie that into your taglines, that is the best. And looking at how-tos, my personal human interest was, I sent it smaller, but they ended up printing paralyzed woman heals with ancient Chinese exercise. So incorporating how you overcome adversity. If you're doing charity work and you have an impact on a family, or you have an impact in your mission, you can tie that into the tagline. But I didn't say...
Speaking about results.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. You didn't say what?
I don't say any names. Like some individuals will say, like I wouldn't say Hugh Ballou's coming to Melbourne. This is how a lot of people write press releases. I would say Forbes recognized transformational leadership specialist coming to Florida, or Forbes recognized leadership specialist coming to Melbourne. So I wouldn't mention your name because the name isn't going to mean anything in the title, but the Forbes would.
Got it. Got it. This is a goldmine of very, very useful information, Shannon. So let's give the name of your book again.
Okay, and then Robert Green has a question on Facebook I want to answer if he's still with us, because I love Robert, and I know you do too. I put you two together. So you can get the book at shannongronich.com or on Amazon. You can send in the receipt, or if you do it on my website, you get it right away, and I give you Jay Abraham's Ghostwriters Training on Copywriting. It's Copywriting Secrets, and it's shannongronich.com. Media Magic, attract limitless, PR, radio, and print publicity. I don't know if I'm remembering the name in the right order, but Media Magic.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Oh, there it is.
There we go. Instantly get radio to give you limitless publicity. Thank you, Russell.
There we are.
That's a testimony right there for you. He's a well-read man.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things in the book that a lot of individuals talk about is I've actually given power words. And these power words are really groovy, especially around putting together your power bio, because it gets you to think of things like, it has created, articulated, developed, all of those verbs that are very action and results oriented. And there's hundreds of them. I alphabetize them, and then I have a few extra ones. But that right there, a lot of people say, I have that tagged. I look at it all the time. And it's a great resource.
Outstanding. So Russell, of course you've read that book, right?
I have. I've read it. I've highlighted a few pieces and looked through it again. And it's always good to remind myself when I get stuck for action words in the blog post. This is right here in my office. So I remember Shannon's action words. I just grab it and flip open to the page, so that you can say the same thing with several different words. But those actions that you get out of, one of the mistakes I see a lot of nonprofit leaders make is when they're writing things, particularly grants, they do it in very passive language. And that was a habit that I had for a long time. But when you're using that passive language, it doesn't convey the message as quickly and as succinctly. So you want to use these action words in grants, especially when you're quantifying your results or quantifying how you're going to measure what you're doing. You want action words. And when you're talking about what you've accomplished, you want these action words to stand out. We have the number of people who are on food stamps, for example. So you want to have those action words there so that they're operative and available to people. And in the press release, they want action. It has to be short. It has to be snappy to grab attention. And all you're trying to do is get them to say, "Tell me more."
And Russell's.
So do you, Russell, find that when you're submitting a grant, and I want to make sure we get to Robert Green's question because he did say, thanks, Shannon, he is watching. Do you find that, and Robert can even answer this question, that they, when you're submitting a grant, that press releases, or not press releases, but them knowing that they've gotten media exposure, do you ever submit where they've been in the media and publicity with grant proposals?
Well, it depends on what the request for proposal asks for. But if you've been highlighted or featured, that's always a piece to add to your credibility. And then those bios for board members and that type of thing, the important things that you put in there are these are the things we've done. And if you've got those numbers with results for things that you've done in the past with other projects that go into that, that's pretty powerful. It adds to the credibility. So you have that in your press kit. And that would be another thing I would add in a nonprofit press kit. Who's funded you, who you've worked with, who you've partnered with, what results you've managed to get with other programs or similar programs, especially if you're following up with something that you've done. Now let's take it to the next level or have people come back to learn more about it.
Awesome.
Really good advice. And that whole thing, Russ, about the passive language, Russ is a gifted writer, as you might guess, so he pays attention to those things. And there's a huge difference in how people are going to receive it. So Shannon, what is this question that's been lingering out there?
So Robert Green with Think Global, Start Local, he says, I'm on a mission to inspire people to do more planned giving to support nonprofits in general, and one in particular. This is a sophisticated proposition. This is really about shifting people from being considered donors into meaningful donors. Is this something I can craft into a well-written press release or a story? Absolutely, Robert. I see a few different angles with that, and one is the education piece of letting people know the benefits of that. There's a few different benefits of the impact that they're having. There's other benefits that could be tax benefits, thinking about the education piece of the benefits. Also, if there's any stories, meaningful stories that can be crafted around this of individuals that have done the meaningful donation. So yes, there's probably a number of angles that you can take with that press release.
So thank you, Robert, for that really good question. That's a very good question. And sometimes the donations are like a sympathy card. what we want to do, and that paradigm shift that he's suggesting is so important. We want meaningful supporters that make meaningful donations, and I think what people want to know is what's going to happen as a result of my donation. And you referenced it when you said, what's the impact of the work that you do? And Russ talked about it when he said earlier on the why piece. I keep going back to that. If you have a why piece, why do people need this? And then to couple it with the impact, and then you quote yourself and others in your organization, then they know you've got the leadership ability with you and your team to actually accomplish it. And so there's also a rhythm of getting information out, Shannon, isn't there? You want to be covered on a regular basis so that the cumulative impact is stronger than a one-time release.
Yeah, so this is where if I could leave individuals with anything, is scheduling this as part of your operations, because it is a meaningful and worthwhile and impactful way. And especially if you're a nonprofit where you're struggling and you don't have much of a marketing budget, or I tell people, if you're spending anything on marketing right now, incorporate this free publicity piece, because you can actually expand your marketing dollars even beyond that. So, hopefully my story of taking an event from 500 to 2,000 will show you the value of putting time and energy into this. I've had millions, but I've had thousands of dollars in one particular project and publicity, and am able to turn that into some great things. So please look at this as part of your operation, and part of your plan is getting that coverage on a regular basis and getting that out there. Because it takes, sometimes you get it and they say, oh, it's not going to work, and you have to tweak the tagline, and it takes a little bit of work, even as an expert that's done it all a number of times. Most of the time I nail it now because I've really got that. But as you're learning to do this, you're building relationships and you're moving things forward. But yes, you should be every week spending a little bit of time of getting yourself out there. It's free. Why not?
I want to invite people on this call to go and check out Nonprofit Performance Magazine. It's nonprofitperformance.org. And we do a whole bunch of useful articles. And the next edition is going to be on boards. So Shannon, if we wanted to craft a press release on a new board member, or the importance of the people on our board, that's what seemed to be newsworthy. If we've got really high value people that are in organization and they're doing good work. So speak a minute about that. It seems self-serving or kissing up to people, but in the other sense, it's really celebrating. Here's a person that has a lot of connections and a lot of value to the community, and they're putting the value into the work that we're doing as a charity. So is there a press release piece around new board members or new board initiatives to celebrate the power of the board that we have?
Yes, absolutely. And I would try to, try in your press release to keep it as singular focused. And if you can do, if you have 6 people on your board, look at doing some individually. But a new board member would be a welcoming and again, focusing on what their expertise is that they're bringing to the table. If they are somebody like Hugh Ballou, who's been in Forbes, then you can name drop. Sorry.
Shamelessly at that.
I love it.
Well, it's true. I mean, you're just such a prime example of when you've had certain levels of accomplishment that are internationally recognized. Those are opportunities to name drop and leverage that with your board. So again, it's telling the story. We're welcoming this new person. Here's what they're bringing to the table, and quoting them. That's a place where you can quote them of what they're, what's the impact they're going to be leaving here. And the quotes are real short and sweet. It's one sentence with you in the middle.
Love it. So once you think about a parting thought, you give us one, but maybe there's another tip or thought you want to leave us with. And I want to encourage people to go to nonprofitchat.org and sign up so they can get updates about the past interviews and the upcoming interviews. We've had a series of really useful interviews like this, that it's stuff that people can take home and actually do something with. So Shannon, you've given us some very useful stuff in this interview. Thank you so much. And it'll be live on social media on the video, but it'll be part of the Nonprofit Exchange podcast. And I'd like to invite people again to go on the iTunes store and review the Nonprofit Exchange podcast, because that'll help us get ratings and be able to share it with more people. As we're winding down and wrapping up this hour, which has gone way too fast, what's a parting tip or thought that you'd like to leave people with?
I just want to share one of the biggest transformations that I see in this media kit process, and that's the power of the expert power bio. I did give you the 12-step power bio at shannongronich.com/power bio. Going through this process and creating that, I've seen this, for me personally, be able to get wages like an attorney, they paid like an attorney. I've seen individuals get speaking gigs that they didn't necessarily get. The expert power bio is usually one of the first places that I start with people, because it has the greatest impact on the results that we have in multiple areas of the nonprofit. So when you're talking to donors, when you're talking to media, when you're looking at proposals or agreements. So if you don't have that, put energy and time on that, because right now there's, again, thousands of dollars of publicity waiting for your name on it. There's stages waiting for you. There's radio interviews waiting for you. They just need to know who you are and why they want to pay attention.
Wise words. Russ, thank you as always for being so diligent and capturing the sound bites that matter. And Shannon, thank you for sharing your wisdom with the nonprofit world. And we'll push this out right away so people will be able to listen.
Awesome. Thank you, Hugh, for your work. I can't say enough of how grateful I am, and all the lives, again, that you've touched in my world and at our events. And Hugh is on our executive team, so he's just a rock star. Thank you, Hugh. And thank you, Russell. I love you too. You're awesome.
Good to see you again. Great to see you again. I love this. And like I said, this is in my office, kind of shameless promote. It's best to let your friends recommend you, Shannon. That's why I'm doing that.
Russell has got media magic in his hand. That's a good place to say goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye to Facebook people. And stop live streaming. So I've stopped the recording. It's still got the red light there. Thank you so much, Shannon. This was so useful. We still have people on the on the webcast, but I will clean up the video and I'll put it out on social media sites. And Russ has been good at putting on LinkedIn. And Russ, I got really good numbers for David Gruder's anger thing last week. So. I'll share those with you. It'd be nice if we keep a tally so we can share them with these guests who've been so helpful.
Yeah, I was surprised at I thought I would have more on LinkedIn, but I put it up and those numbers are growing slowly. So I think I'm just gonna, I haven't put the podcast link up, and sometimes I can put the podcast up versus the video and it gets more traction. So thank you. Shannon Gronich, Power. Yeah.
Thank you, Shannon, for putting it in. Sandy says, thank you. Shannon, you've got an article you can put in the board member. I was setting that up. I didn't mention it, but if you want to put an article in the September issue, August, September, on using PR for new board members, I think that would be really good.
Where and when? Are you offering me an article somewhere?
That's right, in the magazine. And Sandy's listening, so she's hearing this. So it'll go to Sandy.
Oh, sorry.
It's on Synervision Foundation.org. Under magazine, there's the submission tabs. We're pushing the date out to the end of July for submission. So if you want to write one on boards, and Russ, you too. So the issue is focusing on boards.
Okay, this one's on board, so you want me to talk about
that whole thing we talked about, you know, how to use publicity, or, you know, celebrating the good board members or highlighting them, or new board members.
Okay, perfect.
You know, think about how to use, we're too secretive about our board members when we really need to be tooting the horn. I guess we're afraid people are going to steal them if they know much about them, but I think that's silly.
Yeah. And I just downloaded that HubSpot spreadsheet that you mentioned maybe 2 or 3 days ago, and I've been playing with that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Of course, it did some weird things. I was trying a bunch of different words. It did some weird things with some of them, but
you get the idea how you can, it helps you
yeah,
craft. Yeah, it's really great.
it's great. I mean, you can do all sorts of stuff with that. So
Russell, I want to do a couple of 3 panels, and I asked Shannon if she'd be interested. I'm going to get like Cheryl Stamp Connor and a publicist over, a PR person over in DC that's got a really good clientele, and Shannon, Cheryl, Ashley, and Doug Brown to talk about how do you get your publicity out there, and some writing skills. And everybody has a thing. Shannon, do you have any online programs about what you do?
Yeah, I do. I have a home study course, and I've got a group thing also that people can go through. Hugh, I was also thinking. Go ahead.
Send me those, because I'd like to offer them through Synervision. Do you have an affiliate relationship?
I don't have the affiliate thing set up, but I'm happy to white label things to you if you want to do it.
Right. Send me what I need, and we can set up the affiliate on my end.
Okay. And then also, I'm doing the Mastermind Monday, the first and third Monday of every month. And that may be something that you guys plug into and promote what you're doing here. So like the 19th at 7:30 in the evening. I think Mondays don't work for you, Hugh. Is that right?
No, Wednesdays. Monday. I just had something committed last